Alright guys, so we're going to be picking up where we left off, and the next variable we're going to look at is a floating point type variable. Now, last time we looked at integers, and we learnt the Achilles heel of integers is that they can't handle decimal numbers. So if it's not a whole number, you can't store it in an integer. Now we're going to look at a type of variable that can. So floating point type variables is actually three different variables in C#. The first one is called float. It's the smallest of the three and can handle numbers in between 6 to 9 digits. So that's quite a big number, and it takes up about 4 bytes of system memory. Now we have the double, which can take 15 to 17 digits and takes 8 bytes of system memory. And then we have decimal, which can handle up to 28 to 29 digits and 16 bytes of memory. Now, the catch with decimal is it's not actually interchangeable with the other two types. It would have to be converted. So as a catch, I don't tend to recommend using it unless you need it. And with normal Windows Forms applications, I wouldn't say that there is a reason unless you're doing scientific work or something like that. So for our usage, I tend to recommend the use of double. It's a very robust size. However, you can mostly get away with float. Now, regardless of which one you use, you must remember that they're floating point type variables. The reason is this is important is in the HSC syllabus, it will refer to floats. And when we say float in the syllabus, if you're used to saying double, you might not recognize the link. So now that I've made that clear, I would like to emphasize, remember that a double is a float, but bigger. So, as always, let's start by grabbing a group box. There we go. Drag it up to size. And let's call it doubles. And name the group box GB double. Okay. Let's just change the font to make it a little bit easier to read. Alright, now, as before, as always, we need 2 text boxes, so let's throw them in. 1, 2, and a button. So, what are we going to name these? So, text box 1, the top one, will be txt dbl input. Second one will be txt dbl output. And the last one, the button, will be btn dbl run. Now we'll give the button the name double run. And there we go. Alright, so let's grab a label, just so we can make our traditional little blurb about the variable we're using here. Okay, turn off bold, it doesn't need to bold. And then we need to... Actually, we need to give it a name, label, double, and then turn off auto size wherever it's buried in here in the settings. Now, guys, it can be fairly difficult to find specific settings inside the properties box. However, I will highlight to your attention that there is actually different settings up here. So we've got alphabetical order at the moment. We could also order it by by category. So that might be easier for you. In this case, now it puts auto size under layout. Before it would have been up the top. There it is. And I will say that under alphabetical, the name is always at the top, which I quite like, so I recommend using alphabetical. So we've set auto size to false, which allows us to give our label a size. Now, what are we going to write about a double? In C#, a double is a floating point variable type. It is designed to hold numbers, including decimals, up to 15 to 17 digits in length. Okay, so that's a little blurb, and now as always it's time to hit the button. So let's click the double run button and take us to the code view. Now if we want to declare a float, which again is the smallest type of floating point variable, it is simply float, and then let's give it a name, float bar, just like we would with any other variable. Double is double in, we'll give this one a decent name, DBL, because we'll use this one, input. And then a decimal is simply decimal. There we go. So declaring each of those is quite simple. We're only going to be using the double one. They all operate in a very similar way, except for, like I said, decimals cannot be converted into floats or doubles, while floats and doubles can be crossed together so long as the double doesn't exceed the float size. Now, how do we use them? So, believe it or not, and this might not be surprising, this is extremely similar to the integer, except for now we can handle decimal point numbers. So let's do DBL input equals double this time, dot pass brackets, so we still have to convert it, our text box in data from our text box into a double. Doubles don't get us out of that task, but that's okay, that's pretty standard. Now, as before, let's do a little test. DBL input equals DBL input times, let's throw a uneven number in there, 1.75. There we go. So whatever input is inputted into the double input text field, we'll save it as double input and then times itself by 1.75 and then save that into double input again, which will give us a new value. Now we want to output it back, so txt double output this time equals DBL input dot toString, our brackets, and end the statement. And I forgot to put dot text, so guys, just remember, that can happen to everyone. And there we go. Alright, so let's give that one a test. Hit start. Declaring variables. Put in 2. And then we got 3.5. Now, let's try, for an example, what happens if we try and put a decimal into the integer field. Now remember, we don't have any error handling, so, whoop, catastrophe, panic, it's crashed. Alright, so, it's worth mentioning that that is the same type of crash as if you'd written text into the field, because the variable cannot store that sort of information. Alright, so that was a double, and as I said, very similar to integer, and I'll see you in the next video.